Before we begin, tell me which country you're watching from right now, because what happened here sounds like something out of a movie, and I promise, every second of it is true. If you've ever had a nosy neighbor or a power-hungry HOA Karen, stick around to the end. This one ends with fireworks, literally. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more wild HOA revenge stories like this one. It all started one freezing winter morning in a small mountain town where firewood wasn't just for decoration, it was survival. The narrator, a quiet man who had moved away from the chaos of the city, built himself a small cabin nestled between pine trees and frozen streams. He'd worked hard to make it self-sufficient, with solar panels, a small generator, and a wood-burning stove that kept him warm through the long winters. For years, life had been peaceful. Until the Homeowners Association decided to expand. They annexed nearby properties, creating new rules and trying to bring the quiet mountain community under their control. At first, the narrator didn't mind their leaflets or their patrols. But things changed when Karen moved in. Karen wasn't just a member of the HOA. She was their self-appointed enforcer. She strutted around like she owned the mountain, clipboard in hand, sunglasses on, even when it was snowing. She believed every property within sight of hers belonged under her authority, and she especially didn't like that the narrator refused to join the HOA. At first, her harassment was small. Notices were taped to his gate, warning him about unapproved wood piles, non-standard fencing, and failure to maintain decorative consistency. He ignored them. Then, one morning, he noticed something odd. His woodpile was smaller than it should have been. At first, he thought he'd miscounted. Maybe he'd burned more than he remembered. But over the next few days, the pile kept shrinking. Eventually, he set up a trail camera, and there she was, Karen, the HOA president herself, pulling up in her SUV at midnight, loading chunks of his firewood into her trunk, and driving off like she was performing some kind of covert mission. Apparently, she felt entitled to it because the HOA storage shed ran out and community members share resources. The problem was, he wasn't part of her community. Now, he could have called the police, but he knew Karen. She had connections in town, friends on the board, and a way of twisting everything into her favor. So instead of fighting her in court, he decided to fight her with creativity. The narrator had once been an engineer. Years before retiring to the woods, he'd worked in controlled demolition, the kind that used small, contained explosives for rock clearing and construction. He still had a few legal-grade pyrotechnic components in storage, mostly used for fireworks displays. That's when the idea hit him. He hollowed out several of his older logs, carefully removing the inner wood and filling the cores with a mixture of compressed powder and magnesium flakes. Completely legal under his demolition license, but not something anyone should be stealing. He sealed the ends back up with resin and stacked the special logs right at the top of his pile, the same pile Karen loved to raid. Then he waited. A few nights later, just before midnight, the trail camera picked up movement again. Karen's SUV rolled into view, headlights dimmed, trunk open. She did her usual thing, grabbed the top layer of logs, loaded them in, and drove off like she was performing some kind of covert mission. The narrator didn't move a muscle. He just sat by his window, watching the snowfall, waiting for the inevitable. The next morning, the sound that echoed across the valley was unforgettable. A deep, rumbling whoomp, followed by the sound of shattering glass and a panicked scream. Karen's chimney had erupted in a plume of smoke and sparks, shooting out chunks of burning material like fireworks gone wrong. She wasn't hurt. The blast had been more bark than bite, mostly smoke and pressure, designed to make noise rather than destroy. But the shock on her face was priceless. The local fire department arrived minutes later, thinking it was a chimney fire. When they found the half-burned logs, they quickly realized the wood wasn't normal. Karen, of course, tried to blame the narrator immediately. She stormed over covered in soot, demanding answers, but he was prepared. He showed them the trail camera footage, nights of her sneaking onto his land, stealing wood from his property, and driving away. The officers didn't need much convincing after that. In fact, the HOA's reputation took a serious hit. It turned out Karen had been using her position to take donations from multiple residents, firewood, tools, even garden equipment, claiming it was all for community storage. The investigation uncovered that she had been selling some of it online to fund her personal HOA enforcement projects. When the footage hit the local news, the story spread fast. HOA president caught stealing firewood, blames exploding logs. The headline alone made her infamous overnight. Within a week, she resigned from her position, her SUV repossessed, and her property placed under review for multiple HOA violations. Ironic, given how strict she had been out everyone else's. The HOA board tried to save face by issuing a statement saying Karen had acted independently, but no one believed it. Most of the homeowners quietly stopped paying their dues. A few even left the HOA altogether, citing loss of trust. The once feared association was now a punchline. As for the narrator, he rebuilt his woodpile, stronger, bigger, and this time with motion-activated lights and cameras surrounding it. Word got around fast. Nobody touched his property again. When winter came again the following year, the snow fell heavier than ever, but his fire burned bright and warm. The HOA's headquarters down the hill, though, sat dark and cold. Nobody had wanted to pay for firewood that year, not after what happened. And so, peace returned to the mountain. The narrator spent his evenings by the fire, smiling quietly to himself, knowing that sometimes the best revenge isn't loud or cruel, it's poetic. He didn't need to hurt anyone. He just needed to remind them that theft, arrogance, and entitlement always have consequences, sometimes ones that come with a very bright flash.